Bulldog fans to a happy Davis Wade Stadium in Starkville. We're happy. And by the way, we're going to talk about the Bulldogs' victory, 42-24 over number 17 Texas A&M. But first, this is a doubly triumphant weekend for Mississippi State, for Bulldog Initiative, and for Steve Robertson. Congratulations on the success of Rock Vegas.
Well, thank you, David. There's a lot of people that made this happen, and while I may have been the lead dog, I wasn't the only dog, and now we're going to use the money raised in that to help Charlie Winfield pay some dogs. And that's the legality part of it now. And so I'm just glad Charlie feels like he has a partner in all this, and I want to thank everybody that came out, everybody that bought tickets and donated tickets and sponsored the event. We had a great time last night. It's just the beginning.
And it was just the beginning of a great weekend here at Mississippi State all around, because Vegas rocked last night. Scott Field rocked today. That was a physical football game, as expected, between Mississippi State and Texas A&M. The Bulldogs came out the better. Now, there's so many ways we can attack this game. I want to start with what I'm going to be writing about, prejudicially, of course. Who would have ever predicted that the air raid offense would outrush Texas A&M and Devin A-Chain? But Will Rogers checked in run plays. Mike Leach called run plays. The Bulldog offensive line, still missing Bill Johnson, did its job. And the Bulldogs, they may not have won the game on the ground, but they made it possible to win with a strong running game starting in the second quarter.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question. I think one of the things you learn from this is that when you need to, State can kind of exert their will a little bit along the line of scrimmage. And you mentioned kind of a patchwork offensive line with Stephen Lasoya at left guard and Nick Jones at left tackle, but you found success running behind those guys. And Nick, of course, has been your starting left guard. And this early in the ball game, you had some pre-snap penalties, and I asked Mike Leach about that. He didn't want to talk about it. We're going to talk about it.
We're going to talk about it.
But the reality
is,
are
you having flashbacks to Kentucky 2018?
A little bit. That's kind of how it felt. Like we didn't get off to a very disciplined start, but once State got into the flow of the ball game, State controlled the game pretty much throughout the rest of the game.
Yes, they overcame the penalties, and I think that showed a lot of mental resilience by the Dogs. They didn't just drag it on into the rest of the game. They didn't hesitate. They got out and did their job, and they opened up holes for Dylan Johnston, who ran like a man today. He's always run hard, but he was bouncing off tackles, getting extra yards. Jaquavius Marks, who could not play last week, came in, ran hard, 54 yards as well. Yes, they only scored one rushing touchdown, but it was a big one because it was a kind of a A&M that got a little momentum going. State drives the length of the field, responds there. So the ground game did its part. Let's talk about the passing game as well. Will Rogers. Okay, 2 or 3 of his throws the first quarter could have been intercepted. They weren't. Luck counts in this game, and he responded as well and started hitting his receivers. He didn't use as many guys today. Only 8 Bulldogs caught passes, but he found the right men at the right time.
Well, David, I don't subscribe to the Hugh Kellenberger doctrine about almost interceptions, but you're right. There were a few errant throws early in that ball game.
I hope you're not comparing me to Hugh.
Of course not. How dare I be such a thing?
I have better hair than he does.
But I definitely thought Will got sharper as the game went along. And I think some of that, too, is a credit to the running game. I think Will had the Texas A&M defense guessing a little bit. I think as a result, he had more confidence about where he'd go with the football. And as a result, things were clicking. I tell you, Dave, the game was already decided, but A&M scored and kind of made it look a little tidier. And 75 yards up top to Ra Thomas. Great catch and run there. Great throw from Will Rogers. And it just seems like when those two are on rhythm together, they're going to be difficult to beat.
And of course, Justin Robinson came in at a big day, particularly in the first half when State needed to get something going. Somebody rises to the occasion. Let's see, we have Ra Thomas, you have Caleb Ducking, and now tonight it's Justin Robinson. And of course, Rufus Harvey has some catches, Tim Griffin catches. Guys were doing things with the ball tonight after the catch as well. So you saw a pretty, maybe unintentionally balanced, but a very balanced Bulldog attack by all comparisons. And again, they outrushed A&M, which means the Dog defense definitely did its job. Now, do you subscribe, as I do, to the theory that maybe the key to the game was when that Dog defense at the 6-yard line strips A-Chain of the ball, everything changed from there.
And you could sense the A&M win starting to come out of their sails. And David, that was a huge moment, not just for the Bulldog defense, but for this crowd, who really, I think, kind of willed that defense along there in that second quarter. Because, we saw it at LSU. That State has a 2-digit lead, and next thing you know, LSU scores right before the half, changes the entire complexion of that ball game. That's not what happened tonight, though. A&M's driving down, next thing you know, defense gets a stop. And those stops were huge on back-to-back drives there and allowed State to get in the locker room with a 2-possession lead. And from there, you go out and you get a stop. And it just seemed like, even when the defense was gifted the short end of the field, which is, an unusual way to say it, they held them to a field goal. They didn't get up the touchdown there. And then State's able to stretch the lead back out. So this was a game where everybody kind of worked in concert together, and of course some big special team plays as well.
And I don't think you can overrate the fact that they did hold it to the field goal after a big kickoff return by Jane. And that was one of the things that maybe if the Aggies were ever going to really get back into it, they held it to the field goal.
Yep.
Second half, come out, A&M has the ball first, they get something going, and again, they're unable to put points on the board. They're unable to get a touchdown on the board. The Dog defense just made plays. They made tackles, which was a concern going in. They stuck guys down. I think the longest run from scrimmage was 20 yards. So, and plus they lose Nate Watson on a kind of a dubious targeting call there in the second half. So the Dog defense just rose to the occasion no matter who was on the field.
I'd say, David, when Mookie Watson went out, even though I felt like we were still in good shape, I thought, there's going to be some room to run inside here. But J.P. Purvis, probably the best game in the uniform. I thought he was absolutely outstanding. Will Rogers talked about it in postgame too, about how he balled out, and that that was one of the question marks coming into the season, David, depth at linebacker. And now all of a sudden, Deshaun Page is out, and now J.P. Purvis steps up. They talk about a next man up mentality. He's the next man up.
And Purvis is a great story too, because he's a guy whose career could have ended not long ago as well. He stuck around. He's come back for this extra year, and he's ready to step on the field when he needed. I thought State did a good job in the second half of alternating Nathan Pickering and Cameron Young in there and mixing and matching. They changed the lineup. I don't think that Max Johnson ever got a really good read on what State was doing defensively.
No, and I think that's why they went with Haynes King. And then, to be honest with you, after watching, granted Haynes has played more against more prevent defense, but he gives them more of that zone read, call quarterback thing. Max Johnson's just kind of a bit of a swashbuckler, I guess. When things break down, he'll take off and go. They may go back to King, but I agree with you. I think Max Johnson was very confused tonight, and there were times he was just seeing ghosts. There were times the State wasn't quite there, but he would pull the ball down and kind of begin to search for something. And Bulldog pass rush tonight, I thought, was as good as it's been at any point this year.
And let's give credit to special teams. Yes, they missed a field goal. Of course, they made a big one last week, missed one this week. It turned out not to matter that much in the big picture of the game. Last week, and weeks before, State has come so close to blocking field goals, usually to Carlos Nicholson. They changed it up today. Maybe the Aggies looked at that and overprotected that way, because Emmanuel Forbes comes roaring through, and there was no doubt he was going to get that kick, and he did. And then, obviously, Cameron Richardson does a great job. Well, Mike Leach's joke was he waited for the second bounce to pick it up and run with it instead of just trying to grab it off the ground.
Yeah, it was a great moment, too, and I think at that point everybody in the stadium, including, no matter what shade of maroon you're wearing, I think there was no doubt about who was going to win this football game.
And let's also give credit to Emmanuel Forbes, his fourth career pick six, although we had to wait forever for replay to uphold it there, but another score for him. So all Dog units, special teams, offense, defense scored points today, a win over a top 20 ranked team, a second straight win for Mike Leach and the Bulldogs over the Aggie program. I know some wise guy on our message board was saying that, what's State getting for its money in offense? Somebody came back with a better comment. What's Texas A&M getting for their 9-digit investment there? Just a good program win for the Bulldogs, and now they keep the SEC streak going because it's Arkansas next week.
Yep. Dave, when we talk about how the next three games is the defining stretch in this season, State takes a big step towards finishing the season on a strong foot tonight.
And after that, of course, the trip to Kentucky. But here in October is when the season will play itself out, and State set the tone for what bowl it goes to, for how high it finishes in the SEC West. A great big step for the Bulldogs and Mike Leach tonight, and you can read all about it, hear all about it, and enjoy it again in our coverage by Steve, Mike, Paul, Robbie, and myself. A great day to be a Bulldog, a great weekend to be at Mississippi State. Show up again next week, 11 o'clock in the morning, Arkansas on the field. This team that State should have beat last year, has a great chance to do it this year. And right from here on the Gene's Page 24/7 site, Steve Robinson, cameraman Mike Nemeth here, and myself, David Murray. It's great to be a Bulldog.